28 games left for the Philadelphia 76ers as the second half of the season gets underway on Thursday, hosting the Boston Celtics. No big deal with a 20-34 record that you might have to get things together in order to make the postseason and try to make a run. So with that, a little bit of pressure, little bit, maybe for this basketball team. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Wednesday presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app using code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Folks, look, all three of us are here today.
First show of the week, we had the full crew, man. Jeez.
We were joking because first day I was out, second day Devon was out. Devon's like, I'm going to be here by myself tomorrow. So we were going to have him sit here and us walk in afterward just to commit to the bit. But
I was waiting for a Looney Tunes like anvil to fall out of the sky and hit Devon on the head. And then it's Derek and I doing the show today. So thankful to have everybody in one piece. And thank you to Mary in the chat who's sending good vibes to my boy Louie, who is feeling a little under the weather right now, but he's resting and recuperating.
Super Bowl hangover.
He's got as Derek had, he has the parade flu right now.
Parade flu. Little hangover there. That's all, but all good. Louie's back. Derek's back. Kyle's back. I'm Devon. Bree is here with us. All of you, thank you for hanging out with us on this Wednesday. Yes, we have a lot to talk about with the pressure part of things with the second half of the season. 28 games, so a lot of questions to go into it. Some practice notes overall. We got to get Kyle's thoughts on Lonnie Walker signing with the Philadelphia 76ers, 2 years, a little over $3 million, just under $4 million with the number. Kyle reported that the second year is a team option, so we can't wait to hear what his thoughts are about that. And just some other little nuggets to toss out there as we hang out with you here on this one for the final show before the second half gets underway.
Also, just real quick on that, me and Highlighter over here did do a podcast yesterday specifically on Lonnie Walker. So if you missed that, go check it out.
Go check it out. I did not have the highlighter on yesterday. I have it on today to highlight the point that it is a pressure-packed second half for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Kyle, the honors, man, when we look at who has the most pressure, we've talked about different things and different angles that need to be talked about with other players and the coaches and even the ownership of the front office of things. But pressure-wise, when we look at the 28 games, 20-34 right now with the 54 games in, and yesterday at practice when Derek and I were there, you at practice today, the theme was
two practices in like what?
12 hours.
12-ish hours,
somewhere in that. But yeah,
like 18 hours, whatever it was.
And these guys,
they need like 3 and 24 hours at the rate they've been going.
No doubt. And last night, play-in, they were discussing that and how important it was for the play-in and how something like that is built for a team like the Sixers. You there today, a similar theme there about, hey, we just got to get in, man. And when we get in, we might be dangerous and that kind of thing. But so with that, guess what? They got 28 games. They need to win some of these basketball games then to take some of that pressure off of themselves going into a possibility of maybe moving up in the standings in the Eastern Conference, move up in the play-in from the possibly 10 up to as high as 8 potentially, maybe even 7. Who knows as to how high they may get. But when you look at them right now, and Joel Embiid is practicing, and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey are practicing, who do you feel like as you sit here today, one day before the second half starts off, has the most pressure laid at their feet as we get started?
So I've been going back and forth on this leading into the show. I think it's one of two people, and a lot the lead in for our show, it's Joel on the image, right? And I think the easy thing to say is, Joel's under pressure because of the shortness of players' careers and he's taken all this grief for not playing and being injured and whatnot. And I wanted to say Nick Nurse. I do think to some extent, though, it's Daryl Morey overseeing this whole thing, because no matter where this goes from here, there are a lot of eyes on this team in the short term. There are a lot of eyes on everyone's performance right now is connected to him. This is no longer like, oh, he's dealing with the remnants of Doc Rivers got hired before him. He's no longer under hey, Brian Colangelo did this, or they traded away this guy, or they drafted this guy with the number 1 overall pick and that didn't work out and you have to kind of adapt on the fly. Everything that is in place from the front office to the coaching staff to the roster on the floor and the contracts that those guys have is a direct reflection of how Daryl Morey has chosen to set up this organization. And I think all of us can sit here and say there is context to some of the failures, that I think some things have worked out. Worst case scenario in the short term that might not be that way over the long term. But whether you're looking at, and we've said we've been disappointed in Nick Nurse as a coach, or you're looking at Joel Embiid and this huge contract extension that was given at the start of the year, the 3 more years that they have of Paul George, the organizational decision that we've seen in these last few weeks, that it does not seem like they're going to tank, that they are committing to, hey, we're going to try to get into the playoffs, at minimum, be in the play-in tournament and take it from there. All of that flows through decision-making at the top. And so I think it would be inaccurate to start with anyone other than Daryl, who, while he has some security in the form of, I believe his contract is through 27, 28. And so I'm not saying, hey, they fail in this short-term period, that the ownership group is going to say, you're out of here. But I think in terms of frustration from the fan base and all the factors that we're considering here, I think he's under a good amount of pressure for this team to turn things around, and for this gamble that they're taking to continue to push chips in on this short-term path. That all ends up falling on him at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple different ways to look at it. In terms of like whose reputation is most on the line, I think it's Joe, because he has not gotten deep in the playoffs. They have not had the kind of run fans want. He's running out of years left. His prime may very well be in the rearview mirror. So turning this around would have the most impact on his legacy and how he's viewed within the fan base. Daryl's sort of in a similar spot where, I think his reputation is very much impacted by what happens here over the rest of the season. But I think for the most part, like, Joel will still have some supporters and some people that believe in him, even if they might not believe in the knee going forward. There's a body of work that he has done in Philadelphia that some people appreciate. I think Daryl's even farther down in public opinion ratings because, like, he's not the injured star. He's not the,
right,
maybe past his prime guy. He's just a guy that a lot of fans view as he hasn't done anything for this franchise and organization. And then there's Nick Nurse, Nick Nurse is probably the one who's, I don't want to say his job is on the line, but if there was ever going to be
closest to it for sure.
If there's ever going to be someone who is going to take a fall for this season, he is the one that would be the most likely candidate. So I would probably go for Nick just because he is the one that, like, stuff rolls down. This doesn't translate when you try to do the PG version, but stuff rolls downhill. You know what I mean? And he's farthest downhill among that group.
Dookie rolls downhill.
Yes.
Some alliteration. How about that?
So I would probably go Nick for that reason.
I was going to go with Nick Nurse also because of a lot of what we talked about. Again, yes, he's had to deal with a bunch of different changes with his personnel being available, mainly his superstar player being available, the big free agent acquisition being available, and then getting out there and playing and not dropping a 2-pointer in the game that they needed. That's not on him.
Someone called him Perrier P already. So.
Well, we did that on
Monday. Let's circle back on that. Yeah. So that it stuck a little bit.
That was ours, Perrier P on Monday. But yeah, so when he drops 2 points and the star doesn't play, and you're dealing with, last night we got the update on the players that were out. There were 3. Yep. Today you got the update at practice. There were 4. This has been a constant for him all season long.
And I told you, Nick Nurse actually laughed that he was going through the practice stuff and was like, yeah, everyone was all in except for this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. And he goes, it's actually a good day for us.
Right. So that's been the season. And look, he's done his fair share for us to point our finger at him as to why they are 20-34, why they lose some of these close games, why you are making a certain substitution versus another. And we'll get to some of the personnel stuff and what the rotation may look like going forward. But I look at Nick Nurse for those reasons that you brought up too, Derek, is that if there is going to somebody may be a fall guy for one of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory for this basketball team. Joel's not going anywhere.
I don't even think you have to qualify it that much. It is by far the most disappointing season. And I'm not even sure if you could say, like, in recent memory. It might be in my lifetime. I don't know if you can tell. We're not in 4K yet. You can't see all the gray. I'm not a young guy anymore.
He's still young. So with that, though,
Appreciate
again,
that,
that's the thing for me
Checks
with
in the
him,
mail for Devon.
that he is the one that's probably going to, he's the one that's going to fall on the sword there. Yeah. So with that, Paul George, even if Paul George somehow miraculously, you bring up Daryl Morey, he finds a trade partner. That's a quick Band-Aid ripoff compared to how long he's been here. And while Nick Nurse only be here for 2 years, you feel a little more invested in the Nick Nurse piece than you have been with the Paul George side of things, where Nick Nurse might have to take that fall, and that's a lot of pressure going on for him. And again, with all the changes, and now you're getting Quentin Grimes, bringing in Jared Butler, if the players are healthy for the remainder of the second half of the season, relatively healthy for the second half of the season, you now in 28 games have to figure out how this is going to work for you to just simply get in. And that's on you to make sure you're running the right stuff. If we have questions of, is the offense involving everyone? Why is Paul George just standing in the corner? How do you get the basketball in his hands so he's not being one of those third options just in the corner waiting for the ball to swing to him to take a three-pointer with 5 seconds left on the shot clock? That's on Nick Nurse to figure that part out. The starting lineup, where you've railed at it a lot. Both of you have. Why is Kyle Lowry starting next to Tyrese Maxey? You have to make a decision on. Justin Edwards has already been ruled out for tomorrow and on Saturday. Who is going to be that fifth starter if Embiid, George, Maxey, and Oubre are out there? He has to make sure that all of that works. Is it Yabusele back in the starting lineup? Is it someone else in the starting lineup there? And that's where I think that falls on him. He is going to have to be almost in 28 games. I don't know what that looks like, and we'll get to that later because I was going to ask you guys a similar question about it. Almost flawless here going the rest of the way to make sure that this works and they find a way to sneak into that play-in tournament. So that's why I would lean more to Derek's side with the Nurse piece, but certainly understanding and right along with you with the Daryl Morey side of things. It's
a fair distinction, though. Daryl is more at blame for what has gone on this year, I think, than Nurse. I think in our previous show, Nurse disappointed us more. But I think Daryl, like Kyle said, he has his hands on every aspect of this roster, from the coach to the Paul George aspect of it, to the extension, to the really old, really short guards he started the season with. Every part of that comes down to him. And Nick Nurse certainly mismanaged a lot of it. And Joel Embiid's injury put them behind the 8 ball. But Daryl certainly touched more aspects of this mess than anyone else. And for that, he is maybe not the direction I went in for the most pressure, but certainly a candidate.
Well, I would add this on as well, because I think you're absolutely right. If you're looking at who could be a fall guy, like who's under immediate pressure in the sense of if somebody's getting blamed and somebody's getting pushed out the door, I think Nurse is the most obvious candidate in that sense. I do think, though, if we're looking at who I think looks like or is acting like they're under more pressure, I think the two guys are Morey and Embiid. And I think it's manifested in different ways, right? Like Daryl in general, but since he's been in Philadelphia where I've paid much more attention to what he's doing day to day, Daryl is a very present person, not just like at the arena, but online, right? Like he'd spend a lot of time on Twitter and on podcasts and on radio and, just, being a pretty prominent basketball voice, not just for the Houston Rockets, not just for the 76ers, but just like a person who is involved and is vocal about the goings on in the league. And he has really retreated this season, right? Pretty understandably so, because I think if after doing some crowing in the offseason and being like, hey, we're
sending
built
out
to
a cap
compete.
Space jersey.
We're built to compete with Boston and whatnot, to fall flat on your face like this. I understand you don't want to be out there and just like taking grief in your mentions and on your posts and whatnot day after day. So I get that. And I think that he has shown a recognition that, like, look, the things where I want from Joel, where it's like, buddy, stop doing handstands. Daryl has done his version of that. There's no posting stupid memes and
now I'm envisioning
crypto
Daryl doing a
and
handstand
NFTs and other stupid BS that he could be doing right now. He has at least, but that shows me that he feels what's coming from the outside, what the fan base feels about him and about this team. And I think another version of that is how we've seen Joel talk about everything that he is going through and what the team is experiencing, right? Like, I think you can read between the lines with him, but also just in what he has said and what he has shown on the floor, that he on some level gets that like patience is wearing thin with him. And that hasn't always manifested the way that we want, right? It hasn't been him going into bunker mode and like taking on the criticism. It's been a little bit of like lashing out and act like doing the handstands and the other stuff, just because he doesn't really know what to do with the knee situation and the foot and all the inability to play and process this. And so I think those two guys are more obvious. Like I can see them being bothered by everything that has happened, where Nurse is flustered. Nurse is certainly not having a good time, but has been a little more even keel. And Paul, I'm not sure he's in his own private Idaho, right? You remember when he re-signed with OKC prior to being traded for the 1 year, and it was a whole big thing. And he talked about how he really enjoys fishing, and that was part of why he was comfortable just like being in OKC versus going to LA or wherever. Well, he is in his lake right now, just hanging out fishing and I don't think he's feeling any pressure at all, which is a bad thing, but I don't think he is even, if he is, it hasn't registered or it hasn't shown up at all.
Quick guess. How many tweets, not retweets, but how many tweets, like his own tweets, do you think Daryl Morey has sent since the regular season started?
Is it less than 3?
Zero.
October
20th, 3 days before the start, was the last tweet from Daryl.
I wonder why.
I mean,
I wonder why.
Can you imagine his mentions if he just tweeted about something random right now?
Speaking of Perry AP, I'd imagine we want to talk about him and the pressure that, while he may not think he's under pressure, does he not realize he's in Philadelphia and not? No, I'm about
disrespect. To turn into that clip of Michael Irvin. What are you prepared to do about it?
And we'll see what he is able to do about it. He was at practice yesterday. Was he at practice today?
He was. He was having a shooting competition with Tyrese and Ricky after practice today.
All right. So I think maybe, at least I will. I'll talk about Perry AP. Pressure P after the break. We'll do that when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365.
What's that? Is that a call from my good friend Ryan Reynolds on Mint Mobile?
2 phones.
You have a great deal for the listeners, the viewers of the PHLY 6. Ryan, I'll get to it right away. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was our good friend Ryan Reynolds calling the show to let you guys know you don't have to deal with the traditional big wireless carriers anymore. Their bogus fees, their air quotes, free perks that actually cost more in the long run. It's time to switch to Mint Mobile. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans that start at $15 a month. What a deal. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Here's the best part, guys. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. You bring your phone number, your existing contacts. You don't have to change much of anything except what you're paying, which is less. You save and you use that money elsewhere. Ditch the overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile's for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Kyle out here doing acting auditions in the middle of our show.
Hey, listen,
I'm not sure Ryan's going to see it, but I
appreciate
appreciate
deliver for
the
our
effort.
partners, baby.
We also want to tell you about Golden Nugget Jewelers. For the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers from across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even Baltimore and New York City have come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find that perfect engagement ring or wedding band. The staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. And just because Valentine's Day is now in the rearview mirror does not mean you have to stop doing nice things for your partner. Don't do that. Golden Nugget Jewelers has a vast selection of engagement rings and wedding bands, along with high-end watches, fashion jewelry, and sparkling diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and more. And you receive a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. Golden Nugget Jewelers has been a family-owned and operated business since 1987, right there on Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelers.com today to learn more.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Wednesday here. Hanging
He's
out
about
with
to
you.
say Friday.
He
Brother.
has no idea.
We're not used to these 3 p.m. shows. We do so many in a row. It's like, got to be Friday, right?
By the way, we're off on Friday.
Hey,
just to
a
let everybody
rarity.
know, we got a game tomorrow. So 6:30 pregame with Rich and myself. Bree will be with us, and Kyle and Derek at the arena will check in with them from the arena. And the Celtics will be in town, which is a
Those stinking Celtics, man.
nationally televised game. So,
Oh, boy.
yeah, there's that. It's nationally
At
televised.
least they're
game.
mostly healthy, knock on wood, for
Outside
now.
of the 4 people who can't play.
4 people. Yeah.
They're not the stars, though, at least. So that qualifies.
And they're not the guys I want to see play other than Justin. So,
Yeah,
There you go.
That's a big part of
well, and Jared, obviously, so it's really just Lowry and Gordon. It's like, you know what, guys? Take another week off. Enjoy your All-Star break. Kyle Lowry, I hope to see you on a beach somewhere with a nice Prosecco in your hand.
He is not going to live that one down if this season continues in this direction and he has another single-digit performance. Paul George is not going to live that one down. All right, Derek, I ask you again. Paul George will talk. I will talk about Paul George. I don't know how you feel about pressure with him, but is anyone else you feel outside of Nurse and Morey, Embiid isn't unto himself, but pressure-wise?
I mean, probably Quentin Grimes, just because he has a contract coming up.
That's a good point.
And he wanted a sizable deal in the fall, didn't get it. Has a chance to go out here and get it in the summer. And, you know, there's obviously always this push and pull with restricted free agents where, like, you turn down something in the fall, think there's going to be greener pastures next summer, but because you're restricted and because that will dampen some interest, it's not as bad as it used to be. I think the waiting period now is only 2 days. You only get 2 days to decide whether or not you're going to match it. So it doesn't tie teams up as much as it used to. But even still, a lot of teams are hesitant for especially rookie scale restricted free agents. He's got to really play well. And I think he's going to have a chance. There's a chance he will start. Nick Nurse was asked about it and it was, talked about that could be the way they go. And if he does so, he has a chance to earn a significant contract because I think they're looking at it and they're saying, this is a guy who fits well next to our core guards. So if that is true, and if he plays well, he has a chance to really boost his earning potential.
Yeah, I think
it's a different kind of pressure. It's not like fans are, bearing down on him and ready to. It's pressure though.
But it's it's a pivot point for his career potentially, right? You could make yourself a good bit of money with it because Frank, we talked about it a lot. His start to the year was really, really good. He was a ultra solid guy in Dallas. Dallas is doing whatever the heck they're doing right now.
Nobody
but
really knows.
He had a really good start to the year. He's come in right away. And at practice today, Nurse talked quite a bit about what he could do or what you might expect from Grimes in the short term, but also moving forward. Mentioned that he wants to see him run some point, like use him as a 1, which they did in Brooklyn, allow him to handle the ball and see what that looks like. So that'll have some downstream effects. That he's going to get the chance to start with Justin Edwards hurt, and that might be how they're going with the rotation in the future anyway. So he has a lot of runway to work with. So I agree that it's pressure, but I think it's good pressure, right?
Yeah.
He's going to have a lot of opportunity to, hey, you could go anywhere from maybe you just end up on a 3 for 24 type of deal, which I think is probably in the fairish territory for him. Or maybe you play yourself into like a full mid-level and that becomes a real conversation.
Or even like a 440, 444, maybe not quite the full, but a decent contract.
Look, you're 24, 25 years old. You're a model of player that I think lots of teams value and covet around the league. So if you play smart basketball, you shoot well, and you defend hard, you can write your own ticket moving forward. So I agree on there. Devon, you wanted to get into Paul George. And while I...
To be clear, I was kind of saving Paul.
For sure. While I disparage him from the perspective of I don't see him wearing it, I think there absolutely should be pressure
100%.
felt and pressure put on him because, set aside what it means for the Sixers. If you're a prideful enough guy to be a high-level athlete into your mid-30s and wanting to be that type of guy bad enough that you keep coming back every day, you stay in the gym, you rehab through injuries, whatever. presumably you don't want to end your career on what right now was looking to be a real sour note, right? There's obviously lots of time for him to rehab the image he has here and sort of the book on him as a whole. But that is sort of what he's staring down these 4 years that he'll either be in Philadelphia or maybe eventually somewhere else. Is you might be remembered as a guy who had some big moments and you were a X amount of times all-star. But at the end of the day, these guys want to be remembered for getting it done, right? And being one of those guys that's able to put it together for, even if it's just one time, right? We've seen it from great players. Like Gary Payton's an example I always think of. That guy was an amazing defender and really good player for a long time. But until he latched on with Miami at the very end, he would have been one of those guys that's like, hey, he just never got a ring, right? Charles Barkley's a guy in Philadelphia, inner circle type of player during his playing days, won an MVP. But now he's in the category of best players who never won a championship. And so it's up to him, the pressure's on him to move out of that type of category and become like I did whatever it took at the end of my career to make sure you can't say that about me in my 40s, my 50s, when you're looking back on my career.
And I go back to the press conference, his introductory press conference, where, again, Nick Nurse was sitting in the front row. He looked at Nick Nurse and just the assembled media in general and talked about how he felt like, hey, we got to take some of this pressure off of Joel Embiid, where it's not all relying on him at that mid-post level to sit there and isolate himself to do whatever they need to do to score. That's not all that they did, but it was a big point of what he talked about. While that one stretch, Derek, that you talk about, where he had about a good 2.5 weeks, where he was averaging about 18, 19 a game, and he was rebounding, he was assisting, he was playing that high-level defense. Again, though, that's just a 2-week stretch. And for him, just for me going back to that press conference, hearing what he said, having that stretch, Embiid has been out more than he has played. You needed to continue. And yes, I'm sure the injury threw you off. The same knee injury twice within a matter of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that can really throw you off of your game. And I'm not discrediting that at all. But I'm just going back to that moment and then seeing the lasting image of, forget about the beach picture, but the lasting image of watching a full 30.
It may end up being the lasting image of this season when it's all said and done.
But that picture, though, right before that, playing 30-plus minutes and only having 2 points. I understand the pinky thing and all of that, and we make jokes about it. But like all of us say here, all 4 of us say, you are out there. Yes, you can make a difference by making your passes and your rebounding and assisting and initiating the offense and all. But you also have to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that you win that basketball game. That was one, including the Toronto game the night before, that you do that. So that's where, for me, that pressure is really on him for these final 28 games to kind of erase what we saw, not just the entire 30-plus games that he played, but especially something like we just saw going into the All-Star break, including that what could be a lasting image of what his season is. He could play 50-something games or 60-something games, but if he stinks and they don't look good and they get eliminated before they should, the jokes will be there because of something like that when it shouldn't be. It should have been something entirely different when it comes to Paul George. So for him to, again, bring up what he initially wanted to do to take some of the pressure off of Joel Embiid, that is square at his feet right now to make sure that does not happen, because Embiid, with 5 back-to-backs in March, we already know 5 games he's not going to play. If George is playing in those games, he needs to make sure that he levels up next to Tyrese Maxey to be that 1-2 punch that we talked about, and not as good as Quentin Grimes looked, dropping that 30 and the pressure being on him to elevate his...
You can't ask him to give you 30,
exactly,
man.
You can't ask him to be the number 2. You can't ask Kelly Oubre to be the number 2. He needs to be the number 2. And again, it doesn't have to result in 27 points on every outing, but to have that, I'm going to drop 18. I'm going to grab 7 boards. I'm going to grab 8 boards. I'm going to hand out 6 assists. I can expect 6 because guys have to make shots, but he has to make sure that he is the one that when we walk away from this 28 games, and if they're fortunate enough to be walking to the postseason, that we're sitting there saying, all right, he did his job. Now let's see what all of them do collectively to get into maybe the full playoffs there after being a play-in team. So that's where I look at it with Paul George, where he really has to step up here and go out there and be that same guy. At the end of the day, man, he's still a high-paid dude that was brought in here to do a job. He's kind of coasting with how he's doing it. He's playing the way we've seen him play in the past, where he's still effective and impactful within the game. But he is also a veteran that reads the situation and understands that, hey, I need to inject myself a little bit more here for what this particular game calls from me, for what my team needs. And I have not seen enough of that, especially those 2 games against Toronto and Brooklyn going into the All-Star break. That needed to be a message sent in that All-Star going into that.
A message was sent.
2 games,
wasn't a good
man.
one.
Toronto and Brooklyn, the least likeliest teams that we thought we would be talking about going to the All-Star break that were we've been on must win for a long time. They needed those 2, and he didn't do enough. And that one was really bad with that 2-point performance. He needs to erase that. And that's why I say that pressure is on him going into this final few months.
And, Derek, you go.
I was going to say, going back to something that Kyle said, that you don't want your career to go out as disappointment. Truth is, most careers do. That's sort of what aging is. You either have 2 things. You have success earlier in your career that you can point to and say, that's who I am. That's what I was capable of on both an individual or team aspect. Or you cling and scratch one out late in your career, a la Peyton, like Kyle mentioned. Now, I don't think any of us are sitting here thinking like, oh, Embiid and Paul George are going to dominate the league in 2028-29. That's unrealistic.
No.
That makes these 2 seasons super, super critical to trying to salvage that portion of your legacy. And here's what I'll say. If what you saw from Paul George against Brooklyn, or even in the 5 games since he came back, is what you can see, I think the best way to salvage this season is for him to sit and make sure that finger heals correctly so that if Embiid and if Tyrese Maxey are able to carry them even to a 10th seed, he is ready to go. Because if they claw out and like scratch out that 10th seed and his finger gets like damaged or hurt or the tendon, something happens to it, it doesn't matter if they sat here. Like they need him ready to go for that play-in tournament. I would seriously consider, if that's not getting better and if that Brooklyn game's an indicator of what's to come over the next couple of weeks, just sit him down and don't risk injury. It's not even like I'm sick of watching him. It's not a tanking move. It is the only thing that matters is getting out of that play-in, and you need his hand to be more functional.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Derek. Here's the other part of that. It's like, not only are you potentially physically hurting yourself and you know, dealing with the ramifications for that in a play-in scenario or the playoffs. I'm Jim Mora over here when I'm thinking about the word playoffs with this team. We've seen it happen with guys in this city before, right? Where you come in with big expectations, you sign a big deal, and you start tail spinning early. It is really tough to pull out of here because this is not LA. This is not a hands-off, laissez-faire, laid-back market that just like, well, you took $50 million from my favorite organization and did way less than I expected out of you. This is a city, rightfully so, that when a guy gets paid a lot of money to play for their favorite team, they want to see them doing everything that they possibly can to try to make that team as good as they can be. And I think that was why that 2-point performance going into the break was so noteworthy to me, right? Like, again, if you can't play, if you're hurt, that's all, you're all gravy with me, right? Take the time you need to get healthy and get back. But if you're going to be out there, you owe it to these people who show up for you, who are still here, in spite of the fact that you've won 20 games out of 54. You owe it to them to give them absolutely everything you can and to adjust to the moment as is necessary, right? Like, that's what they expect from you. If you're playing through pain, if you can't do certain things, people in this city will understand that, right? They look at somebody like, perfect example in a recent Eagles situation. Landon Dickerson was really banged up, right? And he obviously, when you're dealing with a knee problem as an offensive lineman, you're going to have mobility issues. You're not going to be able to get as much push up front as maybe you can get. But they respected the fact that he was out there. And I understand it's a little bit different when an offensive lineman, it's a binary thing, right? Either a guy gets by you or he doesn't. And Landon still did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, he did his job, and people respected him for just giving everything he could. If I saw Paul George really busting his butt on defense every single play to the degree we saw earlier in the year, and he's still not as effective on offense, that's something that everybody on this show, everybody watching at home, would be able to respect, would be able to point at that guy and say, maybe he's shooting poorly, maybe he can't get by people right now and his handle is a mess, but I see somebody who wants to live up to what people expect from him. What he can't do in this final 28 games is treat it as, well, I'm hurt and I have the excuse and I'm going to allow that to flow through every part of my game. Give what you can to this game and this team, and I promise you, people around here will notice it and people will give you the grace that you deserve. If you don't, you will not come back from it, right? You will dig this hole so deep that you will need to be lights out,
he will
all-star level.
Asking to get traded.
It's really that simple to me. That is pressure, but it should be pressure that you want as an athlete, right? That people are going to show up and want you to be held accountable for what you're giving to your team.
And you mentioned Indianapolis, Oklahoma City. This is not. Los Angeles, this is not. And even with Los Angeles, I mean, man, come on. Your replacement is out there saying, oh, addition by subtraction. I was already here, so addition by subtraction. He was at All-Star Weekend as a three-point contest contributor. We were talking about him being a potential All-Star when we put together our list before the All-Stars were announced. We even said on Monday that he should have been a replacement for LeBron James or Anthony Edwards because those guys did not play.
Shout out Norm Powell, baby.
And he's out there hooping, calling you out and saying how much better they are. And oh, by the way, in the tough Western Conference, they are sitting there in the 6th seed, 8 games above 500, where your team is 14 games under 500. So you can't act like you don't look and see what's happening in Los Angeles, because you do. It's human nature. You do. All those things add up, man. So that's where the pressure again is for him. So how about Derek? How about we highlight Paul George? How about we highlight him?
You highlight him. That's fine.
Good deal. All right, we come back. We'll talk about some practice notes on this one from last night and today from the Sixers practice. A couple of more questions for Kyle and Derek as we hang out with you. And we got to get Kyle's thoughts on Lonnie Walker signing with the Philadelphia 76ers
legend
for 2 years. Last night, we got that news from Shams and a later report from Kyle, as well as the story at allphly.com. We'll talk about it all when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast, presented by Bet365.
All right, first up, we got to tell you about TrueMark Financial, because I don't know if you're like me, but I look at my credit card bill and mistakes were made over the holiday season. What if you could pay that debt off faster and with zero interest until 2026? It's true because TrueMark Financial is offering zero interest on balance transfers for 12 months. So all your payments can go toward reducing your balance, not just covering interest. Transfer your existing balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card and take advantage of this amazing offer. But you do have to hurry out because you have to apply by February 28th, 2025, less than 10 days away. Whether you're interested in earning rewards, cash back, or simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases, with TrueMark Financial, you can choose the credit card that best fits your financial needs. Visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and to apply today. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fees apply. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate.
And if you were also going through a little withdrawal there, watching some basketball or not watching All-Star Weekend, and especially not being able to make any wagers on any games, guess what? Basketball restarts tonight, professionally at least, with the one game that is being played tonight in the association. So you can go to Bet365 and check out an opportunity to maybe place a ticket. I don't know. Maybe you want to do first basket scorer, maybe assist leader, combine a parlay somewhere along the way. Well, Bet365 has you covered with that one. With over 90 million users worldwide, you should partner yourself with Bet365 to add to that number. Live streaming, 780,000 events each year. Early payout offers across the NBA and the NHL. NHL, if your team gains a 3-goal lead, you get an instant payout. NBA, if your team goes up by 20 points, you get an instant payout on straight bets in both leagues on parlay selections marked as winners as well. So you get right back at it tonight with the basketball there professionally, also some college hoops, and you can get involved there with Bet365. Once again, check them out overall because they pioneered the live in-game betting. Early payout offers. New customers can now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up. Use code PHLY365. Bet $10 and place a $5 bet to get $150 in bonus bets. Again, that's win or lose. So sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get, pardon me, I said 150. It's 100. I was trying to give people $50. You go do that on your own.
That's from Uncle Devon.
You got it. Pre-game pick segment, baby. Lock in. $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You mentioned during that read, no professional basketball recently. I was watching a little Baylor, Arizona on Monday night.
A little scouting?
A little VJ Edgecombe.
VJ moving up in the well, he's been in that range.
Well, since he started he shot poorly in that game against Arizona, which was, but dropped 24. And I think that he's been kind of sneaking back up. Not even sneaking back up. I know there were a ton of
I think most people have him in like the 4 through 7 range.
Yeah, I think he went from, I think he was in the top 5 range-ish start of the year, shot poorly, and people were like, yeah, maybe later in the lottery, but this run he's been on, he's firmly back in that.
Sixers might be a little out of it. Might be.
Oh,
they have goals.
They clearly are acting like a team that does not care about keeping that pick. I would say that.
So let's get to that, because at practice, both last night and today, just to start off, Derek, last night we were at practice.
Very late last night.
Very late last night. We were supposed to be there at a certain time. We were there. Waited.
I heard it took a while.
Took a little while. But that being said, one of the themes was the play-in tournament. So as we talk about VJ Edgecombe and some of the other young players, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, of course, Cooper Flagg, they might not be. They're, at least the way they look at it, they're not focused on any of those players right now.
No, but I mean, they've also been focused on winning all year, and they're 20 and 34. So they might not have a great grasp of this right now. No, I think they are going to try to, because look, Chicago is like a game and a half up. They stink. They're not really trying this year either. I think Chicago's lost like 5 in a row. The Sixers just can't make up any ground because they're on their own losing streak as well. So that 10th spot is wide open. You just need a small, low-level baseline competency, and it's yours. And I am sure Daryl will take that 10th spot and see what happens over. And not just Daryl, but like we're talking about all these people under pressure, from Joel to Nick Nurse to Paul George, if he's capable of feeling pressure. None of those players are going to be focused on VJ Edgecombe. They just don't give a bleepity bleep bleep bleep. The only one who would really care would be Daryl, and I think he very much wants to make this play in and give it a run. So yeah, I think they're going to try for sure. It's just, will Joel Embiid's knee hold up?
Yeah, and I think the Lonnie Walker signing, while it's not a foundation shifting signing, is another sign from the organization that like, hey, we're going to give ourselves every chance to try to make a run at this and win games in the short term, and at minimum be in that play-in tournament in mid-April, because Lonnie is notably another guy that allows you to not play the old and small players on the team. Like, for whatever Lonnie's warts are, I know you guys talked about him to some degree yesterday. He is a shot creator. He's 6'4.5". I think he's listed at 6'5". He's got good size. Has adjusted to the way that the NBA has gone in terms of what his shots look like. When he came into the league and when he was at Miami, he was a lot more of a mid-range heavy player, and he has taken a lot of those shots, and frankly, some of the shots he used to take at the rim, and turn those into threes, right? Like, he is going to bomb away. Some of those will be low percentage pull-ups, and you're going to deal with nights where it's like he's 1 for 6, and it's like, he's probably not in the rotation, or shouldn't be in the rotation tonight, and you yank him. But it's another signing of, okay, this guy's, I think he's 26?
26.
He's going to be 27 later this year. And that's a guy who brings youth and athleticism, if nothing else. So there are a lot of issues not as efficient as you want them to be. The defense off the ball, I think, remains a train wreck a lot of the time.
Oh, it is.
But
it is.
That being said, it's another roll of the dice. The team option allows you to say, hey, we look at this guy for 28 games, however many games he plays within that 28, and then you could keep him on the current deal. I think Derek would probably tell you if they bring him back, it'd be more likely they try to figure out some deal where he opts out and you bring him back over a longer period on a different contract. But yeah, it's one of many signs from this group that they're saying there is no towel throwing, there is no tanking organizationally, at least yet. We're going to try to win as many games as possible.
They say anything today about Walker?
Lonnie
No,
Walker? And I my estimation is one.
I don't think they can yet.
I don't think they can, but also I don't think that both parties were even necessarily prepared for this. Like I mentioned it in the story yesterday at allphly.com. You guys might have noted this when you're doing the show, live reacting. Lonnie Walker's agent told Mark Stein yesterday morning he was staying in Lithuania and that this was a 11th hour, sort of came together at the last minute sort of deal. And so Lonnie, as far as I know, has to come back from overseas. Now, it's not that long of a flight from Lithuania to the States, but got to get all his ducks in a row and figure everything out. And to Derek's point, I think David Roddy's 10-day expires.
Yeah. No, we were watching David
night.
Roddy practicing, so they can't talk about Lonnie Walker when that's the roster spot that he's going to knock.
So I think between the Celtics game and the Nets game Saturday, I suspect we will get an announcement and a arrival for the Pennsylvania kid.
Yeah. So make sure, again, allphly.com. Kyle wrote a story about it yesterday, giving his thoughts at allphly.com. While you're there, if you haven't yet or you're trying to check it out and you can't, subscribe and become a member of the diehard community at allphly.com. And you get a free T-shirt, get to hang out in the Discord, get to talk about Lonnie Walker, make all the Paul George jokes, and see where things go for these final 28 games. And stay with us for the full year because you'll be there when the next season starts for 25-26. So for the people who did not read it, though, or already members, but just your initial thoughts on Lonnie Walker and bringing him in. I know you just talked about him a little bit, but your initial thoughts on everything, especially if we talked about him so much in the offseason and even as the season has been unwinding the way that it has.
So, I mean, my thoughts on Lonnie now are kind of the same as when he was coming out of Miami, right? Where I can see the outline of an intriguing shot creator, right? He's got good size, good athleticism, and you see flashes. Like I went back and I watched some of his games in Lithuania this season. I'm obviously familiar with him from his time in the NBA. And every so often he puts together a 3 to 5 minute stretch where it's like, man, he had just like 2 or 3 unbelievable highlight plays. Like somebody tries to blitz him on a pick and roll and he splits it and then goes to the rim and dunks on somebody. It's like, that's something that you really can't teach, right? It's a combination of skill and athleticism and confidence that like not everybody has that. But as we've seen with somebody like a Kelly Oubre, for example, sometimes you need to have restraint. Sometimes you need to play more of a team-centric, share the ball type of style. And something that's never really come for him since he left college and left high school for that matter is that he's not much of a playmaker, right? Like I think he probably averages like an assist and a half per game in the NBA and has not had gaudy assist numbers playing overseas this year and is just not somebody who is a particularly great reader of the floor or passer of the ball. And so without being a knockdown spot up guy, and frankly, that's not really where he's comfortable. You have to figure out, okay, how do you use this guy, right? You got to put the ball in his hands a little bit more. And so that says, okay, well, who do we play him next to, right? Like Jared Butler, when he's on the floor, should basically be running the offense as the point guard. But then it's like, well, so what is Lonnie doing? And how do you use him effectively in those backup groups if you're using him with those backup groups? So I think there are some fit concerns. That being said, I think he was probably the most talented guard who wasn't in the NBA currently signed to a team. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with just saying, he's a talent bet. He's someone that, if you look at how the Oubre signing worked out for the Sixers, where it's a guy that people believe is talented, has great athletic tools, has flashes, has, frankly, production. And Lonnie, even on the playoff stage, when that series against the Warriors that he played for the Lakers in, he was a good two-way guy, right? Like, was a shot creator for himself and scored, but also was part of slowing down Klay Thompson in that series. And I think that's one of the moments that, if you're a believer in him, you'd say, if he can ever put it together, that's where you need that guy, a guy who's more engaged, who's more locked in, because it's the awareness and the tracking plays away from the ball that's really been his big issue as a defender. I get the talent bet. I don't have super high expectations. I just want them to use the 15th roster spot. So from that perspective, I'm on board. I just would say I'm keeping my expectations in check for what he does or what he can change about this team.
Kyle mentioned that the team hasn't commented on it yet, but we do have a little bit of a word here from Lonnie Walker himself, who tweeted about
11 minutes
ago while the show was going on. Shout out to Jess with the Purple Heart, who mentioned it in the chat. But he said he got the call at 10 p.m., which is 2 hours before my clause ended. He had a clause where you could get out to go to the NBA. That was the deadline for it. Still processing it all, but truly blessed, humbled, and excited for this next chapter.
Coming home, man.
We got word from Lonnie himself.
Coming home. Cool. What's the rotation look like then, Derek?
I mean, I would say he's probably the fifth guard, right? Well,
I think he's in the rookie category where he's kind of a wild card, and we'll see how.
Your every day is going to be obviously Maxey and Grimes. Not going to include Oubre. I'm sliding Oubre to the 3-4 group now. Not going to include
he's
him
a wing.
Two. Yeah,
which
he always should have been, but he's been a 2 because we just haven't had any 2s above 6'1". So Maxey, Grimes. I think Jared should be the everyday backup point guard. We'll see what Nick does.
He might play himself.
And by the way, Nick
out
said today he got asked about Jared. He basically said he's going to be on the floor when Tyrese is not, and that's kind of it. It's like 12 minutes every night, 6 in each half.
And I'm sure in his head he believes that. Kyle Lowry's going to walk on that floor at some point.
I don't even want to think about it.
But so I think right now Lonnie's probably the 4th guard. And then next year when McCain comes back, he gets bumped to 5th. And who knows whether or not they use that roster spot elsewhere. But yeah, I think probably the 4th guard for the rest of the season.
Okay.
I would play him over Kyle right now. Lowry.
I would for sure. Like, so the Oubre comp, the reason I want to stick on that for a second is, like, Kelly arrived here at a real crossroads for his career. And I would say it's a similar moment for Lonnie Walker. Now, he hasn't had a 20-point per game season like Oubre had in Charlotte, but has had some productive a microwave scorer type seasons.
Especially that Lakers year in the playoffs. That was really big.
It seemed like his stock was high at that point. And then the league tells you you're a minimum guy, right? Like, we don't believe in you enough as a team player or whatever your skill set is. Maybe it's mentality. It's hard to know, to the point that all he could get this year was the Exhibit 10 from Boston. So he goes overseas and he gets some time there. This, in theory, is an opportunity for him to look within himself, look at how his career has played out, and say, this is my shot, right? This is the chance I have to prove people wrong and to get myself back on track, to be the guy that, when he came out of the draft, and not like he was like a top 10 pick or anything, but there were some real believers in him, that this is a guy with a lot of upside. He's a highly regarded high school player, and it just hasn't gone well for him. We've also seen Justin Edwards, right? Justin Edwards had a bad year at Kentucky after being one of the top recruits in his high school class. And he, with his opportunity, has embraced it, done the right things, bought into a role, and now has a longer-term deal with the Sixers, or longer-term expectations, I should say, with the Sixers. So Lonnie has a similar opportunity as those guys, where he can come in, buy in on defense more, right? That would go a really long way for him, because I think people can see the offensive talent. It's the commitment on the other end of the floor and how he impacts your defense on the other end with, I always try to stress to people now, one-on-one defense is important. With the way the league works today, the connectivity and the ability to communicate and rotate and X out and do all the things you have to do to keep the machine moving. That is the most important part of defense in today's league. And it's what he has been worst at. That's something he's got to dig in on film. He's got to, keep his brain, his mind engaged on the game at all times. That's the challenge for him. I hope he embraces it because it'd be, again, another cool local story.
Yep.
He's a Reading kid. If he's able to come here, rehab his stock, that'd be awesome.
So just to be clear, we are considering Reading local because, like, as someone that came from
I'm not
someone
saying
who
it's
came from the
Philadelphia
Lehigh Valley,
local.
I'm a little biased, but
It's
It's Pennsylvania, right?
Okay.
He's a Pennsylvania kid. It's like, not as far as Pittsburgh, like the TJ McConnell thing, but it's
local.
You're in the.
I consider it local. But like I said, I'm from Lehigh Valley.
It's
so
local-ish at the very
Especially when
least.
we're talking the sports angle of it, where guys come home. This is local. This is local.
No,
enough.
it would 100% be a team that he would be following as a kid growing up.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Couple of things I wanted to ask you guys. This one thing, really, since we're so kind of pressed with the time here. Number one was, Kyle, I was going to ask you this. Derek did not know, and I saw a little bit earlier in the chat where I think it was Jerry Sinclair had pointed out that he thinks that Jerry thinks the team's going to go 18-10 over these final 28.
Buddy.
So I'm not asking you, not necessarily record-wise, can they go 18-10, which would be fantastic for them to have 38 wins to close out the season. That will pretty much get them into the play. And so, Derek, I'll ask you, even though just throwing it on you first, is best case scenario with these final 28 in that range of
Going to predictions. I go back and watch our prediction show, and boy, was I off. So this is
we
tough.
were all off.
Hey,
This is tough.
the
We're
year
all
before, Derek, you and I were locked the hell in on our predictions. So we get a mulligan for this year, is what I would say.
No one saw this happening.
So 28 left.
Just best case scenario.
Best case scenario, 16-12. They do have a very easy schedule outside of the back-to-backs, which is going to be tough. But there's a world where I could see like 16 wins. Like Joe and Maxey, if Joe's playing regularly, you sort of find some of that rhythm back. Nick remembers that you're allowed to go to that pocket pass and get Embiid into that short roll. They forget it every now and then, but I think he's going to remember it at some point. And they just find a rhythm that they've been lacking all year. I could see that. If you're asking me if they're going to do that, no, I'm not predicting that. But 16-12 would be sort of like my high end. You could maybe talk me into 18-10 if like literally everything goes right. But why the bleepity bleep 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 would I think everything's going to go right?
From Derek today.
I'm trying not
Sounded
to get us
like a
canceled
Looney
here.
Tunes cartoon.
Well, Hedva has them going undefeated for the rest of the way, 28-0. So,
Optimistic.
Starting
I
off the
appreciate
That's like
it.
my birds by a million.
Appreciate it, Cheddar. We appreciate that. But I mean, look, when you say that, why should I say 18? You should want to say 18-10 because of who they were supposed to be, but unfortunately, we live in the moment of what they actually are right now. So, Kyle, looking at it again,
I just want to be clear. That's not a prediction. That's best case scenario. Yes.
Is, again, best case
16 to
scenario.
18.
I want to make sure we stress that best case scenario. Throw yours in the chat. I see a bunch of you throwing some in there. So, Kyle, best case scenario for this basketball team. Can it be any worse than it was for the first half?
500 is best case. I refuse to believe that this team is all of a sudden going to be like
I get that.
the competent professional. Now, look, if they win 10 games and they go 10-18, they're probably in the play-in. So,
Which is nuts.
They don't really need to go best case scenario here, right? Like if you win 10 games, I think you're outperforming Chicago the rest of the way. And I think that's now you would be in the 10th seed, right? And that's not. You then have to win 2 road games just to get in the playoffs. But I'm staying reasonable here because every time I try to have any kind of optimism, it's just like immediate just downturn or injury, whatever. I'm just going to say 500
And
is
for
all
those
I
wondering,
can hope
the
for.
Sixers have the 4th easiest remaining strength of schedule.
It's not even worth looking at this point.
Because even with
they're
Boston,
so untrustworthy. I
Boston
don't
is a
care.
tough one tomorrow, but then you have Chicago and Brooklyn, right? At home.
That Chicago one's going to be a big one.
And Brooklyn too again, right? Brooklyn too again. So, folks, just to say this before we get to our roll call, and just want to say thanks for watching on Fast. We appreciate it as always. If you want to continue watching our roll call and our final thoughts overall, head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. Sign up to become a diehard member. and also read Kyle's piece about Lonnie Walker at allphly.com. Also want to say that we can let everybody know once again, go get the hot items out there for the gold standard piece on the PHLY, the collection there. Get your t-shirts, get your hoodies, all available. We saw some drinking glasses. We saw some flags on there for the collection. Store.allcitynetwork.com.
Who doesn't want to think about the Super Bowl every time they have a nice frosty beer?
Hey, you can sit over for the frosty beer and talk about the new offensive coordinator that the team is elevating.
Birds guys already talked about it today.
That's right. The Birds team already discussing that. So again, make sure you go check it out. The gold standard collection at store.allcitynetwork.com. Go order your pre-order stuff is right there for you. So go check it out right there once again. So for me, I agree with Kyle on this one.
Get a pint glass so you can use it when you watch the Sixers.
That's right. 14 and 14, man. 500 I see is where they probably, best case scenario, 500 the rest of the way.
How the mighty have fallen, man. We were dreaming of a lot of things in the offseason.
Because again,
if
it's flipped to 34 and 20 and we say they go 500, we're talking about that being...
They're limping into the playoffs.
Man. Yeah. I mean, look at that. It was 48 wins going and limping into the playoffs. But compared to where we are right now, Randy says crazy 500 would be too much to expect.
Listen, here's what I would also say. You only need to go 4-3 to win a playoff series. So if you get to 500 in the regular season,
problem
2-0 in the play-in, and then 4-3 in every series, you can still win a title.
Yeah, the problem is there's no so the remaining the strength of schedule is based on won-loss record. The Sixers, they play 47% win percentage the rest of the way. There's no 47% win percentage. That's like a 39 win. Well, there might be one in the
It's a new season, baby.
Yeah.
New season. And Jess is also helping us out with the collection. We forgot about the St. Patty's collection for the all-day drinking.
Get your green on. Less than a month away.
All-day drinking. Go check it out. St. Patty's at All City. Kyle, you see that? Day drinking champions is what it says on
I
the
used
shirt.
to be one of those.
Day drinking
I cannot
champions.
hang day drinking anymore. That nap hits me like it's a ton of bricks at about 4 p.m. And then you wake up at 7:30 and it's like, damn it, it's dark out and I'm tired, but now I need to, then I can't sleep. I used to be I could hang with a lot of people during the day. Little kegs and eggs, and then you extend that, and those days are long behind me.
Go get your St. Patty's
bygone era.
T-shirt.
I'm Kyle Lowry at day drinking now.
Just wear the T-shirt, huh?
I got
T-shirt.
the name tag on that says Coach Newbeck.
Coach Newbeck. All right, Coach Newbeck, let's get right. By the way, Jada Jungle said 20-8.
Brother.
Let's go.
From your lips to whatever God you believe in's ears, because I don't see it, but that would be wonderful for us.
News. Sixers related, just because he's a former Sixer. Little 10-day contract for the Utah Jazz, according to Shams, for Jaden Springer. All right.
Good for him.
Good for him.
Good for him. They play the Utah Jazz in Philadelphia, I believe, March 9th. The Jaden Springer return / revenge game.
Will he be on the squad? Second 10-day.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't thinking about that.
Second 10-day. Maybe. All right. Let's get to the world famous roll call.
Well, thank you, everybody.
On a Wednesday.
For being here on a Wednesday.
3 p.m. show.
Derek and I decided on Monday and Tuesday it was only worth 2 of us showing up. No, we had real life things happen, and we appreciate that you guys understand that and show the excitement to have the full gang here when all of us are reunited and back together. So thank you to Greeny Green, to Bootzilla.
Highlighter. I am Greeny Green.
To Martian Lynch, who spent his whole Valentine's Day weekend listening to that garbage Drake album that he put out. Vic is in the chat.
He's out there bad, man. He's still fighting against DeMar DeRozan, slamming his jersey.
Come on, man. They're moving the goalposts for the sales. They said Kendrick was a flop at 319. He's dropping 250. All of a sudden, it's a big accomplishment. Sorry ass people. Headfoot is not sorry. Thank you, Headfoot.
What up, Cheddar?
I don't know. I missed the Cheddar thing. I guess yesterday. But Cheddar. Thank you, Headfoot, for coming through. Hinky in the building.
Hinky.
B Driz in the building, who says Coach
Driz.
Kyle. I am definitely Coach Kyle at this stage. I ain't moving.
You're
like
the young
I
one
used
of the
to.
podcast, though. You've got to carry us.
Yeah. Marcus Blackstock, Mary Overfield.
What up, Mary?
You did give it a college effort in Vegas, though, and I appreciate that.
That is true. I always give it a college effort in Vegas. Mary Overfield is here. Nona, my girl, is here.
Birthday
And I believe
on Friday.
It's her birthday Friday.
Friday, so she's upset that we're not doing the show
Nona,
Friday. We needed a day off.
apologize, but
Happy birthday, Nona.
we took the day off in your honor. How about that? No working on Winona's
We
birthday.
are celebrating
for
with you.
anybody.
That's right.
Hello to Fight Chi, to Money
must have been
Mar.
proud.
What up, Mar? What
To
up, Jay?
Jess, to Jay of the Jungle, to PHLY guy,
What up, Jay?
to Puppas,
Puppas.
who is hashtag Team Squint, squinting at this team and hoping might be able to see something that is not what they've shown. Thank you.
20-8.
Thank you to Ramid, to Rich
What
P.
up, man?
Who
Good to
else?
see Rich P
Who
in
else?
there.
Freddie Powell hanging out.
Norm's
Randy
cousin.
Rubart, Copper.
Randy was ready to co-host the show today if you guys bailed on him. Thank you,
Kamel
Randy.
is in the building.
What up, Mel?
Val hosts, our girl Val.
Hey, Val.
What's up, Val? And INS SS relabeled. You know what? We talked about Daryl Morey today.
No label.
And Yams Colangelo was not here. I can't believe it. That's an upset. But Jamie, thank you for checking in as well. Thank you to everybody. Dave Dewar as well. I Gavini, Malk C10. Thank you, everyone, for
What up,
being here.
Malk?
We love each and every one of you, and we would love it even more if you're all subscribed to the channel. If you're all
41,000.
hitting that bell icon. Look at that. Yams Colangelo is like saying Candyman in the mirror 3 times. Just showed up at the end.
Damn, I'm late.
Hit that bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And hit the thumbs up button to hopefully help us in the algorithm, but definitely to say thank you to Super
Tell
Producer
a friend,
Bree.
and tell a friend, tell a friend, and tell another friend to subscribe.
Super Producer Bree here as always, helping us
Production
out.
excellence.
And we're on the way out. We will be back tomorrow. Devon and Rich and Bree.
6:30
Pre-game,
pregame.
post-game for
Big-
a national
big game.
Boston game.
Big
right?
game. Boston.
Big game against those stinking Celtics. We'll see you then. Until then, take care of yourselves. We're out.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.